What's up, everyone? So I'm back today to kind of flesh out more of what FE may be. So for those of you who may not know, FE or extroverted feeling is the dominant function or the first function of the ENFJ and the ESFJ, the auxiliary or second function of the INFJ and ISFJ, tertiary/third function of the ENTP and ESTP, and the inferior or final function of the ISTP and INTP. And each section of where it's at shows a different level of, I don't really want to say maturity, especially when it comes to the auxiliary and the dominant, which is going to be another video that I'm actually going to put out soon, kind of relating to this. I have a whole bunch just coming out. I'm so excited. But more so, I think I'll say it influences the way that it functions, depending on where it's positioned in the stack. So if you're in the MBTI community, most people usually refer to FE as harmony. The nickname that Personality Hacker gave it. Personality Hacker, first of all, I speak very well of them, honestly. I'm actually taking their profiler training course right now, and it's worth it. I'll tell you that. But that'll be a whole other video. But what I want to say, what I'm actually teaching today, came from a discussion that me and Antonia Dodge had, and that'll come in a future video. I'm sorry, I'm just so excited to talk about all of these different things that I've been pondering, and that I've been discussing, and I've been observing. FE is known as harmony, and usually people see it as the people-pleasing function. People usually see FE as kind of this spineless need to go and meet people's needs, to serve, and just so selfless, things along those lines. And if it's not, then if anything, it's just manipulative. And that's kind of the one-dimensional view of the function, that, oh, you want to serve people, you must be an FE user. Oh, you're an FE user? You're a J? You're a FJ? Oh, then all you must care about is just serving people or whatever. Which is not necessarily wrong all the way, but there's so much more complexity and nuance to it. To say that an FE user, all they want to do is serve people, and that's pretty much all that FE is capable of doing, is totally wrong. There's so many different faces to each function, and if you guys check out my videos on the perceiving functions and the judging functions, then you can possibly identify a lot of these things in that video. In those videos, I explain a lot about what each function is. However, even since I've made that video, I've learned so much more about each function, and I try to incorporate that in my interview videos, the one I did with Rashad, or even some that I did with Andy or David. All that being said, FE is not a one-dimensional function that is only concerned with meeting people's needs. In fact, there's so much more to FE than just meeting people's needs. In my blog, where I defined all of the functions in my own words, I defined FE as concerned with social dynamics, how we emotionally affect one another, and creating harmony by meeting people's needs. Intuitively knows the exact buttons to push in the exact order to get a desired emotional reaction from an individual or group. Extremely diplomatic, in tune with others' feelings, and makes decisions based on what is best for the group, putting his or her own personal feelings in the back seat. Can appear overly friendly and spineless. People who have this function can appear overly friendly or spineless when they're unhealthy. However, like I said, there's much more complexity to this. As I stated in that definition, it's being able to know the exact buttons to push, but not only the exact buttons to push, but in the exact order that they need to be pushed in order to get an emotional reaction from an individual or a group. FE is not just about getting needs met, That is the core question, but it can get very philosophical as well. And I explain this more in me and Emerson's video. It's probably like the longest video I've ever posted on my channel. Two ENFJs who are excited about typology, go figure. But me and Emerson's video on the ENFJ, where we explained FE, and we were talking about like how it starts off very simple by like seeing the emotional interplay. Like, oh, I gave my mom a flower. This is how she responded. Oh, I'm seeing this pattern everywhere else. And then by the time it starts to grow and mature more, it sees the complexity of how societies, cultures, all of these different types of social structures affect one another, how we all affect one another. It's seeing all of the different lines between people who are interacting. So FE users are the ones who, when they walk into a room, they instinctively know, okay, this is the culture of the room. Okay, that person probably likes that person, and this person probably does not like that person. Oh, and that person probably has a crush on this person, but all of these different lines that are going in between these people, it becomes completely obvious. In the same way that many other types with the dominant function, like things are just so obvious to them. Like TE users, they're just always like, oh my goodness, like you just have to do this and blah blah blah. Or an SE user is like, how can you not see that it's just this, stuff like that. One of the things that becomes super obvious to me is stuff like the rules of a relationship or friendship, things along those lines. Like and it's been interesting talking to like FI users, such as Jamila and Bethany. Sometimes they're like, oh, I didn't even know like that this was a thing, for friends and everything. It's like, well, it is, but I understand now why it's not as known clearly. But yeah, all of these things just make sense to us like right away. Like it's completely obvious how not only people are treating each other, but how people should be treating each other. And then we instinctively start to think about what are the best structures that we could place for people to be able to treat each other in certain ways that'll get everybody's needs met. So once again, getting everybody's needs met is still an aspect of it, but it's only one face of the entire function. It's probably like the core essence of it, but from that springs so many other buds, flowers, stems, roots, stuff like that. So one thing that I've also written down is that FE is tied into how people are responding as a group. It's always taking in the consideration of the emotional impact it'll make on the whole. All the ripples that it's going to send out with every decision that it makes. How is this going to influence the people around me? How is this going to influence society? How is this going to influence, anybody's emotions, anybody's feelings, things along those lines. How are we going to influence, how is this going to influence, just people altogether? It always has the finger on the pulse of the social matrix. That's what Antonia Dodge calls it. I kind of like that. It always has the finger on the pulse of the social matrix of emotional interchange, managing hundreds of relationships and emotions at the same time. And it's also in tune with a lot of unspoken social contracts. So we have a lot of social contracts, things like if you wave at somebody, wave back. If someone smiles at you, smile back. And it's funny because like all the FI users are like, why? Why should I do that? When it comes to the unspoken social contracts, the things that you should just know, that's where FE users usually excel at. These are things that it's not really like written out there, but you just know, or you intuitively learn how to behave around certain people. You intuitively learn that, oh, when I'm around people, I probably should not fart. Oh, I probably should not pick my nose. Maybe somebody didn't have to tell you that, but you just understand how to make yourself. And in knowing this, you're able to also understand when you can break these certain rules and when you should not break these certain rules. FE people usually know like how to dress to a certain occasion because they know what society may be expecting of them. So and that's not a bad thing. You know, there are individualistic people there, and FE is not about conformity. In fact, especially like when you're thinking about an FE dominant, they're probably the ones who are actually creating the system, the social structure that we're all following. So when we're talking about them conforming, in actuality, they're creating the things that most people are conforming to, and they're just following the rules of conformity, or the rules that you might see them as conforming to. But even when they're creating these things, it's an effort, once again, to meet that philosophical core need, which is to meet everybody else's needs. And then a healthy FE user understands that in order to meet people's needs, or when I'm trying to meet everyone's needs, I should include myself in everyone. Because sometimes, or oftentimes, FE users tend to throw their own feelings in the back seat. But that does not necessarily mean that they need to do that all the time. In fact, I think that it's best to find ways to rarely do that, and instead find ways where you can meet everybody's needs at the same time. When you look at characters such as Raymond Reddington, who's an ENFJ, if you watch the show and you watch certain episodes, then you can totally see how he's able to use his FE and his NI to be able to predict or get into the mind of another person and see how things will go about. But then not even just stop there, but he knows how, like, approaching somebody, like how they may respond. If you watch White Christmas, the Netflix episode from Black Mirror, there's an ENFJ character on there, and he intuitively just knows. He's even instructing, I believe the guy was possibly an INTP, an FE inferior. He was telling the INTP guy, okay, no, don't wear this because you want to go like this. This is classic, blah, blah, blah. All right, go talk to this person because then this is going to really happen. Oh, you know what? Just tell him that you met him, blah, blah, blah. What he's going to do is he's going to end up saying, he's going to act like he knows you, blah, blah, blah. And he just knows the social dynamic. And that's why they make such good, relationship coaches, because they understand how we're supposed to be treating each other and how if I hit this domino of emotion, then this is how it's going to influence somebody else. And so these are the things that quickly EFJs and IFJs, they're able to assess that rapport and then be able to make decisions based off of that. FE users also tend to value tact. A lot of times you'll find FE users trying to withhold the truth from people because they don't want to hurt their feelings. But when you see really healthy FE users, they usually find a way to deliver the truth without diluting it, but just making it more receptive. I once stated, the way you deliver the truth should never cause pain. The truth itself alone should cause the pain, if necessary. Sugarcoating does not always mean you have diluted the medicine inside. Sometimes you have just assured that the medicine will be received to begin with. Practice tact. It is vital. And I made a whole video on tact as well. They want the truth and they want to spread the truth, but they want to do so in a manner that's going to be most receptive because they are aware of how it's going to emotionally impact people. And if they know that it's going to send bad juju out there, then they want to find a way to still have the good effect that the truth can give to cure whatever is going to be happening without causing too much disruption of the harmony, or by causing unnecessary what's the word? I'd be so mad if I forget this word. I know this word. Collateral damage. That's the word. An FE user wants to be able to spread the truth with as minimal collateral damage as possible. I'm always getting reprimanded by this INTP on Twitter, like, yes, stop trying to sandwich the truth, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, of course you would say that. But for me, who values, or like, like I actually am in tune with how it's going to emotionally affect other people, because then it affects me as well. Because FE users, the higher FE is, the more of an ability they have to absorb emotion, especially when you're dealing with NI FE users. Then I don't want to send out these bad vibes, and send out this bad energy if I can avoid that, because then it's going to come right back over to me. So in that sense, in the same way, FE users, they tend to want to spread the truth with as minimal collateral damage as possible, and they value tact for that reason. We should remember that FE is the same function that Martin Luther King Jr. used to help end segregation. The same function that Nelson Mandela used so that he could unite the people in his country. The same function that Oprah uses even so that she can, influence people. If we were to strip everything that FE has placed his hands on, then we would just have a chaotic society. And so this just goes to show like how much more of an influence that FE may have, how much more complexity that it may have that we may not even be aware of, because we're kind of like fish in an ocean of water that we don't even know that we're in water until, we're out of it and now we're suffocating. It's like, oh shoot, I had no idea that this thing was keeping me alive. So there's so many different aspects to FE, and that's just what I wanted to point out in this video, that it's not just simply people pleasing, but it goes much deeper than that. And I really just wanted to point it out because, I feel like a lot of times people really sleep on FE users, and they call them like, conformists and, like stuff like that, or people pleasers and all of that. And like, even though it can look like that, you should remember that there's so much more that goes on behind it that you may not even be aware of. And you should actually be thankful for, One more major aspect that I want to point out about FE is that it's not nearly as emotional as you may think of FE to be. So this is something that FI users, especially those in the Delta Quadra, such as ENFPs, INFPs, ESTJs, ISTJs, cannot really comprehend or understand, because with them, when they present their feelings, it's coming from way deep within. And so when they are actually appearing emotional, it is because something has actually triggered an emotion deep inside them, because they were working with FI. Internally, they are working with an introverted feeling function. However, every FE user is not dealing with the feeling function inside. In fact, as according to Michael Pierce, who's an INFJ, so FE auxiliary, FE users are actually much more cold and logical in the inside. When they are presenting a lot of themselves and when they seem very, passionate and everything, if we're going to, use that example, it's actually not coming from something that's like deep within that they're just feeling and, just bringing forth, but rather they're using it kind of like the Force from Star Wars. So if we're going to go off of Star Wars, and I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but from what I know about the Force, they kind of use the Force, as like feelings. The feelings that are surrounded around them. That's what they kind of use to be able to manipulate, not in a bad way. It can be used in a bad way, but not in a bad way. Often, or it's not always in a bad way. They use those feelings around them, the people, the feedback from the audience, things along those lines, knowing the emotional interplay. They use those feelings to be able to bring out the necessary emotion that's needed to make the impact. An FI user is only capable of bringing such a thing out usually when they actually really feel that within them. Does this mean that FE is fake? No, not at all. And in fact, I recommend that you check out some of Michael Pierce's videos, and he'll explain a lot more of this, especially in the videos where he speaks mainly about each type, especially the revisiting types videos. But when it comes to FE, it's not necessarily fake, but just understand that they are not as heavily invested in emotion as you may think. One example of this could be in one of my recent videos with David in Albany. When David was talking, he said that a question that always kind of like gets him a little bit confused is when he's asked about how does he feel about something. And it's funny because for me, I know I'm a feeler dominant, but that's the same thing. I much rather prefer to be asked, which he said, what do you think about something? Because internally, we are dealing with TI. We are dealing with introverted thinking, which is based off of principle, which is based off of unbiased emotion. Keep this in mind that when you are dealing with an FE user, they're not nearly as emotional on the inside as they may be seemingly expressing on the outside. But more so, they're using the force in a way to inspire, to influence. So, without further ado, you guys just stay tuned. Make sure to leave your questions, comments, concerns. Check the description. I have a Facebook page where I share my a lot of my videos. People can post. If you guys want, then you can post and let me know like what you guys think about certain things. Yeah, and I have coaching as well. If you guys want to be typed, or if you guys want to have a personal development coaching, then be sure to email me. And yeah, I think that's about everything done.